Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about Hollywood actor Alan Ladd. All images in this video are used under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976. Now, your Alan Ladd was a legendary actor from the golden age of Hollywood, and he was also a very successful film producer. Now, your Alan Ladd as an actor found great success in the 1940s and early 1950s, starring in noir films and westerns. And in those films, he was paired with Veronica Lake in films such as This Gun for Hire, a legendary noir film where he defined the role of the handsome mobster. The Glass Key, another classic noir film, The Blue Dahlia, and Whispering Smith. And he was also known for starring in what is considered to be the greatest western of all time, Shane. And he's also known for starring in another film known as The Carpetbaggers, which sadly was his last film. And your Alan Ladd, sadly, was a man in crisis ever since he was 4 years old. Now, your Alan Ladd grew up poor when he was born in Arkansas, the only child of Ena Raleigh, and your Alan Ladd, a freelance accountant. Now, Alan Ladd's mother was a British woman from County Durham who moved to the U.S. in 1907 when she was 19, and his father sadly died of a heart attack when he was 4 years old. And because his father sadly passed away when he was 4 years old, your Alan Ladd was on the road to becoming a man in crisis because his father really wasn't there to give him the guidance that he needed to be able to navigate through life. And this, compounded along with many of his tragedies in his life, led to him having issues that plagued him for the entire course of his life. Now, in 1918, your Alan Ladd sadly wound up burning down his family home while he and a friend were playing with matches. And as a result of them losing everything, your Alan Ladd's mother wound up moving to Oklahoma City, where she married Jim Beavers, a house painter, and the family, because of an economic downturn, wound up moving to California. And this move to California took 4 months because the family was poor, and because they were poor, they were living in migrant camps in Pasadena, California, then moved to San Fernando Valley, where your Alan Ladd's stepfather, wound up finding work at FBO Studios as a painter. Now, your Alan Ladd enrolled in North Hollywood High School in 1930, and there he was a star athlete, and he was out here also as he was doing swimming and diving. He was also studying high school dramatics and even got a role of Coco in The Mikado. And again, his diving skills and his appearance led to him making an appearance in the aquatic show Marinella. And your Alan Ladd was also training for the Olympics, but sadly, due to an injury, he was not able to compete in the Olympics, and sadly he wasn't able to go on with his swimming and diving like he wanted. Now, your Alan Ladd was, after his performance in The Mikado, was seen by a talent scout, and he was one of a group of young discoveries signed to a long-term contract with Universal Pictures. Now, your Alan Ladd thought this was going to be a big break for him. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, but it was better for him because the contract had options that could continue for 7 years, but were all in the studio's favor. And Ladd appeared in one film, but was considered to be too short. And that was another issue that Alan Ladd had, that he was considered to be too short by Hollywood, and they wound up dropping him because they said he was blonde and too short. And after losing this early career with Universal Pictures, this discovery, he wound up finally graduating from high school, worked in the advertising department of the Fernando Sun Valley Record as the advertising manager. Unfortunately, when the paper changed hands, your lad wound up losing his job and then sold cash registers and borrowed $150 to open up a hamburger stand called Tiny's Patio, because his nickname was Tiny because he was considered to be extremely short. And again, this was an issue that he had because a lot of people thought, oh, he was too short, and he was having these issues. But one of the things I liked about Alan Ladd was he still continued to persevere, and he continued to look to make a living. And he then, after seeing his restaurant not work, he then went out here and took a job as a grip at Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, he was injured falling off a scaffold and decided to quit, but then decided to go out here and save and borrow enough money to go to acting school, and then eventually wound up doing radio roles. And it was those radio roles and his voice for radio that eventually led to him winding up getting involved with an agent, Sue Carroll. And it was Sue Carroll who was a good woman for your Alan Ladd, because it was your Sue Carroll who led to your Alan Ladd getting the breaks in Hollywood that led to him starting to build up a career as related to his performances. And as he was building up his career, he went out here and then started starring in significant roles like This Gun for Hire. Now, This Gun for Hire was a major film as related to movies, because This Gun for Hire basically humanized the mobsters, because before this movie, your mobsters were oftentimes seen as these ugly, evil-looking guys, but Alan Ladd's performance basically reinvented the mobster and made him somebody people could relate to. And this role basically turned the mobster into a human character and had a major impact in the noir film genre, because the noir film genre always had these kind of anti-hero type characters, and your Alan Ladd basically was the actor who redefined these roles, and he was a perfect partner for fellow woman in crisis, Veronica Lake, because Veronica Lake was about 4'10", and your Alan Ladd was about 5'6", 5'7". So they were good to look at each other on screen, and they complemented each other on screen, and they turned out to be a box office hit together. And your Alan Ladd became a star in the 40s, and as he became a star in the 40s, he became a major box office champ for several years, and he became somebody that the studios could rely on for a hit. And your Alan Ladd, as he was building up his career, wound up serving in the United States military. Now, initially, he was classified 4F because of stomach problems, but he then enlisted and eventually was sent to the Walla Walla, Washington base, and he was sent there to be part of their whole motion pictures unit division. And he was out here while he was in the armed services. Many of his projects were postponed, but he wound up again serving his country for a while until he got ill and was sent to the hospital for those same stomach problems, and was given an honorable discharge because of a stomach order complicated by influenza. Now, after this, your Alan Ladd then went on to star in more films, and then went on to continue to further build his career up. And as he was building his career up, he had to deal with a tragedy, I believe in 1937, where his mother wound up committing suicide. Now, this was one of those things that basically further exacerbated your Alan Ladd's tragic life, as he was out here looking to build his life as a actor. He had to deal with his mother, who was also dealing with the fact that her second husband had wound up passing away. After her second husband wound up passing away, she had a relationship that broke up. And after that relationship broke up, your Alan Ladd and his mother were driving in the back seat of a car, and your Alan Ladd's mother, she decided to ask Alan for some money to buy something at a local store. Alan Ladd gave her the money, thinking it was alcohol and she was going to drink away her problems. But what she did was buy some arsenic-based ant paste from the grocer, and then wound up dying of suicide in the back seat of Alan Ladd's car. And again, that wound up being another trauma added to Alan Ladd's life that led to him having serious problems, because even though your Alan Ladd had tremendous success in Hollywood, what happened to your Alan Ladd was he was not able to sleep due to the anxieties as related to his early childhood of losing his father at 4 years old, growing up in poverty and living inside of one of these camps in Pasadena and taking that 4-month trip. And he was also dealing with all of the stresses as related to having to live with a stepfather, having to deal with a failed business once he graduated high school, and dealing with all of these stresses. These are the things that basically was the things that drove your Alan Ladd to drink. And losing his mother and watching his mother commit suicide, that was enough to traumatize one man for one lifetime. But this man had so many compounded issues that it led to him having anxiety as related to him making it where he was an insomniac, and he wound up having to take sleeping pills in order to just get to some sleep. And he also combined those sleeping pills with alcohol as he was out here trying to build his career in Hollywood. And having to deal with all of those stresses in his life, these are the things that drove your Alan Ladd to go out here and drink. And it was that drinking that wound up being a major problem with his career, because as he was looking to go out here and have his career in Hollywood, what happened is your Alan Ladd was out here drinking, and the alcoholism was a thing that wound up keeping him from going from being a box office superstar to having a career go into decline. Now, your Alan Ladd was, again, a major player in Hollywood for many years, and he, with the help of his second wife, Sue Carroll, he was able to go out here and build a career. And I believe that Sue Carroll was, again, a major helpmeet to your Alan Ladd. And again, it was your Sue Carroll, who was an agent herself. She was able to help Alan Ladd build his career. And I believe he was blessed to have a good wife in Sue Carroll, who went out here and helped him pick roles. Moreover, she helped him be able to build his own production company, because as she was out here, she was helping him find the right roles that would fit him and find the right movies to go out here and play in. And these movies went out here and helped him to build a very strong career in the up until the mid-50s. And that's when your Alan Ladd started to have his life start to deteriorate, because as he was out here building his own production company and was going out here trying to continue to work as well, he wound up passing on classic roles like the Jet Rink role in Giant, which James Dean took and became a superstar, The Sons of Katie Elder, which led to John Wayne and Dean Martin having a big hit. And he went out here and then started starring in films that were of a bit lower quality in the mid-50s, and started to struggle with making choices towards the 60s. And towards the 60s, he was having serious problems with his life, with his personal life, with the alcohol. And the alcohol was basically making his life really causing a lot of problems, because he was not able to sleep, he was not able to relax, and he wasn't able to sleep or relax again due to the anxieties he was having as related to the struggles in his past. And he was also having issues as related to the struggles with his career. And he was dealing with a lot of different issues that basically were getting the better of him, because while he was out here, thankfully he did have a wife that did look out for him in your Sue Carroll, and who was his second wife because his relationship with his first wife, a high school sweetheart, didn't really work out. And sadly, she died in 1957. So I guess he had to go out here and take care of his son, Alan Ladd Jr., and continue to give him guidance. And when I look at Alan Ladd, even though he was a man in crisis, he did look like he did set his children on the road to success. So his son, when I read about his son, Alan Ladd Jr., he was a very successful producer. And I believe he was one of the producers who went out here and made one of his sons was the producer of the movie Braveheart, which was the Best Picture Oscar winner. One of his sons married Cheryl Ladd, who was Chris Monroe in Charlie's Angels. And it looked like he raised his children to be out of crisis and break out of the paradigm. But sadly, that same paradigm wound up destroying your Alan Ladd, who felt, even though he had gotten some success and had a bit of a dark period where his films were struggling and he was also trying to do things, he just succumbed to the alcoholism and the stress he was dealing with. And he followed, sadly, in the footsteps of his mother in 1962, where he wound up participating in a suicide attempt. Now, the media wanted to say that your Alan Ladd was found unconscious lying in a pool of blood with a bullet wound near his heart because he had heard about a burglar in his home, and that was the reason for him going out here with a gun. But it was actually a suicide attempt because your Alan Ladd was feeling so stressed and anxious as related to the struggles with his past and his career that he wound up attempting to take his life. And in 1962, they tried to go out here and cover that story so that your Alan Ladd wouldn't appear to be a man in crisis. But sadly, right after that, about I think in 1964, your Alan Ladd suddenly wound up passing away because he had a cerebral edema due to an overdose of alcohol, a barbiturate, and 2 tranquilizers, and sadly wound up losing his life because all he wanted to do was sleep. And again, your Alan Ladd basically sadly wound up losing his life because he wanted to get some peace and sleep, and he couldn't get any peace because of all of the pain that he suffered in his early childhood, and losing his parents his father at an early age, watching his mother commit suicide. I mean, this all just had an impact on this man. In addition to a divorce where he wound up where his wife wound up leaving him, because again, he was dealing with all of these struggles because Alan Ladd suffered a lot in life. And even though he had a lot of great success in Hollywood and was considered a box office superstar in the 1940s and in 1953, and starred in many classic films, and had his signature roles was Shane, a legendary Western, Alan Ladd was still struggling in life as a man in crisis, but he was able to break the cycle. And that's one of the things I liked about Alan Ladd. Even though he was a man in crisis, he still managed to get a good woman in his life, Sue Carroll, who went out here and helped prepare his boys as related to becoming men. And with his help, they were able to help make their boys go break the paradigm of being a man in crisis, because a lot of times when you have a beta male, they will go out here and push the generational man in crisis. But in the case of Alan Ladd, he was able to break that cycle, and his 2 sons went on to be great successes, and both went on to have long careers as producers. And again, your Alan Ladd Jr. and David Ladd went on to go on to have great success. And again, it was all because your Alan Ladd married a good woman, and that good woman prevented those men from becoming men in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to a man becoming a man in crisis, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers. like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me do more videos in the Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis series, you can send a donation to the Cash App, the PayPal, and if I know something about that celebrity, I will make that video for you. That's all I have to say for this episode of Hollywood Historical Men in Crisis. You can rate this video, give a comment, or subscribe to the channel. Now available in paperback and e-readers. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback and e-readers everywhere at online booksellers today.